Okay, well, tonight we're recording an update that many of you are wanting to get from me as the broker and owner of Best Choice, and we do have some important announcements to make tonight. So we have a lot to get through and only 30 minutes to do it. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Hopefully we'll have some yen by the time we get done. I do have some fun things planned for today. But today I just want to kind of start the session off with a quote. Sometimes our lives must be completely shaken up, changed, rearranged, so that you or your business can develop and become even stronger. So this is a message that I found online. I kind of rearranged it for my day-to-day because it's been quite the ride with everything that's happened in the last 24 hours. My life has definitely been shaken up, changed, rearranged, and I have to keep focused to realize that me and my business and your business can develop and become stronger even with all this going on. So I'm going to kind of set the tone for our session today with that quote. I'm really sorry. Some of you have lost some loved ones in the last 24 to 48 hours. Some people that are close. In fact, I lost somebody that I knew. In fact, we just talked a month ago. She was a fellow designated broker down in Tacoma, and she passed away just yesterday or the day before. So hearts go out to people who are going through health concerns or that are kind of shaped by this illness. Next slide, Shannon. So for those of you who didn't see the governor's speech that he did last night, it was, it's like he's dropping all of these little bombs along the way, but the last bomb did impact us greatly as real estate brokers. So we are going to talk about how that impacts us tonight. We're going to go into specifically what the MLS is saying and what I'm going to say. So how do we get through this, and what is Best Choice Realty going to do, and what are some of our top producers doing right now to stay ahead of the curve and be on top of their business. But the biggest change that he announced last night was that we as Best Choice Realty and as real estate brokers, we are not considered essential services. And so we do need to comply with the order, and I did have to shut the offices down. So there's more that comes in for today's update. All offices are closed. That is including Tacoma, Tukwila, Linwood, and Sumner, even though I'm here in Sumner today. We have 48 hours to comply with the notice. I don't know how they're going to keep track. It really doesn't matter. The notice is the notice. But all of our offices are closed until we notify you of the openings. I also had to do a really hard thing today. As many of you saw in my email earlier, I did temporary layoffs today for all the Best Choice Realty staff, except for Lori. Everybody was laid off for temporary COVID type of situation. Their email addresses are still active, and I've checked most of them. They're being forwarded to me. Some are willing to work as contractors to help you grow your pipeline. If you'd like to know who they are, if you made connection with, say, Danita, Carly, Nick, even Jerry Kay, some of these other brokers that are also licensed or that know our systems really well, they may be willing to work for you as a contractor or help you with database management or data entry or listing preparation or phone calls. DJ said he'd be happy to make phone calls and he's very skilled. So if you are thinking you may need some assistance during this time, you may want to consider some of our Best Choice Realty staff that's been temporarily laid off. And we had to do that because we had so many cancellations, and we wanted to make sure and get ahead of this to make sure that we are a solvent company and that we are being very smart with how we've built our business. And we have to be lean and mean, so I had to cut. And that happened today. So tomorrow is kind of going to be an interesting, weird day for all of us. Eric was in the office today, and Eric and I were working on how do we make sure that we keep people paid and make sure everything runs efficiently. And as you know, he was instrumental in helping me build this business. And so we're going to go back to our roots and really work on that together. So you're going to see that we have contacted between Carly, Shannon, and I. We've contacted all of the escrow and title companies that we currently work with. All of them have been contacted so that they understand that our offices are closed and that we are going to make arrangements to do commissions for wire. So that's how the commissions, and that's how most companies are working. We're not going to hold off on commission checks that come in. We do need to make sure that you guys get paid timely. So we will share the cost of the wire is between Umpqua Bank, our bank, and the escrow company is $15. The wire charge we're going to split, so you may see that additional charge, at least for the time being, while the offices are closed. So $7.50 will come out of your paycheck, and $7.50 will come out of my paycheck, and we'll share in the cost of the wire. I think it's the right thing to do given the situation with the COVID and the closure notices on the offices. No live checks will be received until the stay-at-home order is lifted. And so that 50-50 adjustment, we will discuss whether we want to continue doing that after the stay-at-home order is lifted. We might find that some of you guys like it because we get paid maybe a little bit faster, or there's more efficiencies in that, or just to protect those people that are couriers that are out in the field. Again, don't know what's going to happen, but we are taking all precautions to honor the order that has been put in place by our governor. So this is a sample commission disbursement. If you guys want to take some notes tonight, this is how we would want you to do the wire. Because wires are so sensitive right now, they have to call for instructions. If you want to prepare the commission disbursements from here on forward, that is perfectly fine. The escrow companies have all been put on notice as far as to call me and then to get it routed accordingly. So Eric and I have the authority to go ahead and issue the wires that come and go. So this is how you would fill it out. You would not put our office address in there. You would put just our phone number, and it would just have the amount. And I did one up just so you could see what a credit looks like. Many of you have asked me, how do I do a credit to my buyer? Or how do I pay for something on the closing statement? Or how do I instruct escrow? That is the proper way to do it. Credit to buyer toward allowable closing costs. So then escrow is then notified to adjust the closing statement. Okay, next slide. For the next 2 weeks, brokers may, this is according to the Northwest MLS, and we have to follow the rules that the MLS has set us up for. So number one, brokers services to their clients remotely from their house. They are making this very serious. We have to stay in our home. In fact, I'm just gathering some of the last things in the office. I've gathered the plants, you guys, crazy, out of the offices so that we can take care of the plants in our home offices. And we know we're ready to work out of our homes, at least for the time being. Number two, we can utilize technology services such as paperless pipeline. Luckily, we use Zoom. You will be able to, next week, what I'm going to share with you guys is how to use some of these webinar products so that you can actually do some different types of appointments with your clients. We're going to talk about how we utilize technology even more than we have in the past. So I'll talk about that next Monday if you want to tune in for that. But we have online forms. You guys have been trained on how to use Transaction Desk. Most of you, I think Shannon did a check. We had, how many listings, Shannon? 40? How many had?
Not very many. There were probably around 6 or 7 that had like video tours. Okay. Some of them had Matterports. So I think we had 13 of our listings out of the 40 that had some form of virtual tour.
Okay, so we need to be better at doing that. Our competitors are doing that right now. So if you got a listing coming up, you may even want to have, literally, I'm totally a proponent of this, have your seller, if you don't have a virtual professional tour, have your seller do a tour, do it kind of with a stabilizer if they can, of their place, and then give that to you so that you can promote that out to people who are interested. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But similar tools like that will show you some of the latest and greatest tools next Monday on how to utilize virtual tours or photography, or to get your clients familiar about maybe some tools that will help them in helping you get this out to people. And then we are going to do on Friday, if you have not attended in person, our contract negotiation class. It's approved for clock hours. I am doing a webinar training, and I know I'm going to be pushing the envelope a little bit here because it is approved with the state of Washington. Given the circumstances, I've made it in such a way where there's homework and there's an assignment. So we are going to do that at 11 o'clock on Friday. If you want to book your calendar, if you want to attend, You can get 3 clock hours, and I'd be happy to get you a certificate as long as you complete the assignment that we have for that class. So it's like 11 to 1 with an hour-long assignment. So be prepared for that if you're jumping on Friday's webinar. Same link as tonight. So the things that people need to be taken seriously, and I mean this when I say brokers may not, this is not negotiable for our firm, is we cannot conduct any business outside means showings, previewing properties, photography, taking photos, staging homes. All of that we may not do, and we are under the strict order of the governor. Any person who violates this is putting himself or herself at risk, or their family at risk, and it also puts our firm at risk. And we belong to the Northwest MLS, and I talked to Windermere, Berkshire Hathaway, a good friend over at Keller Williams, and all of them are very serious. They're making sure that their agents are conducting themselves appropriately, and I would expect nonetheless from Best Choice Realty agents. So get those showings in the morning. Let's make sure that we wrap up our business before tomorrow at 5 o'clock, just so that we can say that we honored the order that's out there. We have some agents I want to highlight. Let's keep it positive. They are keeping a positive outlook. This is 2 Best Choice Realty agents that sent me photos in the last 24 hours or posted on Facebook. Izzy is on the left. He's one of our, he came from Keller Williams. He's probably on his, I think, 4th or 5th transaction. He's on my little mentorship, but he actually had surgery, and he sent me a picture of himself, and he is still doing real estate. He's on this phone, on a speakerphone, and he had, you know, surgery on both arms. So he's under the weather and very happy that he got those surgeries done before before the coronavirus and all of the stay order was put in place. But he sent me a picture to keep me positive, staying focused. And then also John Ferguson down in our South, he's wearing he's a tie-dye kind of guy. And he said, I think everyone might like a big smiley face today. Keep the faith, this too shall pass. And he sent that out to all of his group on Facebook. So if it would be a bad day if I didn't hear from John Ferguson. So keep the phone calls and the positive messages coming. I really appreciate it. I know my staff really appreciates your thoughtful comments and texts and outreach that you guys have done to keep everybody focused that this is going to pass and we all have to get back to work, and keep a positive outlook on what is to come. So let's go to the next slide. Some of emails, I'm going to share some good stuff with you guys. So hopefully you can, there a black way you get that black thing off the screen, Shannon? I don't know if you can on the right side or if it's just my screen. Probably it's just my screen. But basically Tracy Bellato, she's another Best Choice Realty agent. She has had great success. She just sent this out to her clients. Keep looking at homes online. Video walkthroughs are possible. So I like the positivity. She sent this to me today so that she says, if you want to use this, this is what's working for her. So she had a little message about the Governor Inslee about not being able to tour homes, but however, and she underlines, we can request that the seller provide a video walkthrough in lieu of a live tour and can submit offers that are subject to an inspection once the quarantine is over. The housing inventory is in short supply, so we anticipate a pent-up demand of home buyers once this is over. We hope you'll take advantage of our website to view homes you may want to tour and save them as your favorite. We realize this isn't ideal, but it could be competitive that will get you the house while everything else is in quarantine. I love how they put their website link in there and they're willing to customize a home search. Many of you now should be spending time. We do have the ability to create landing pages and websites for you guys. If you don't have one, let me know. I have, Lori and I can help in creating those for you while we have this 2-week we're staying at home. I can't be bored, you guys. That's one thing that you'll know about me. I like to keep busy. So if you'd like me to help you with that, we have a tool that we'll have you fill out, and then we will help you in creating your website. HomeGuideNorthwest.com. Tracy Bellato has done a great job of building her own website, and she's obviously having a lot of impact from this email she just sent out at 2:27. So one that works great, you do need to follow up with your clients. Just sent that out today, this afternoon, and she's already getting people responding to that. Another one, Cheryl McLaren sent me, checking in. I love this one because it kind of shows the human nature of everything and how you could speak with people. People want to feel like you're human, and I like the human element that she puts in here. Checking in, hoping this email finds you all safe and sound and healthy and with toilet paper. In parentheses, I think that's kind of the running joke right now. What a surprise. If you need any referrals or are wondering what the market is doing, please email me and I'll get right back to you. I've been working from my home in the past few days and have time to kill. It's a great diversion. And then she kind of talks about Best Choice Realty, how we are set up for safety and how we have guidelines for showing and listing homes. Happy to give you the list. Decide if you want to take advantage of this market. Stick together and we will all get through this. So I've been working from home. I love that she's kind of really humanizing the experience here. So it doesn't have to be long-winded. It doesn't have to be, I don't want to see, I get so many COVID emails. I'm kind of tired of that part. But let's get human and let's get to the root of the issue and stay connected with our clients. I think that's the key here, is to follow up, and use emails that you know works. And she's getting a lot of responses to that. Lori sent out an email to everyone today with an image that you can post. What we are not meaning to do is to disrupt what the Northwest MLS and the governor has said, where we're not wanting you to go out and FaceTime with the clients. But there is ways that you can have the seller FaceTime the buyer. It's a matter of coordination and thinking outside the box. So you need to think about this. For at least the next couple weeks, we're not able to physically show the homes, but are we able to work out of our homes and virtually connect with the listing agent who can then put us in touch with the seller who could FaceTime the buyer? The answer is yes. There's a lot of people home right now. And this is a unique way that we can FaceTime home tours, take a tour easily from the safety of your home. Almost 90, I think it's 90% is the number here in Washington, have the ability to FaceTime. And that seems to be the easiest thing to do with people who have a Facebook account, is allow the seller to FaceTime. You can use Zoom, you can use other ways, Skype, but for some reason, 90% is a pretty compelling number to use Facebook or FaceTime to connect home sellers and home buyers together. So there is a way to do that. You just need to utilize technology. We're going to work on that next Monday. And Lori's created the image so that you can get the word out and try to stir up that activity if people are considering, you know, how do I tour homes? Well, you can't, but here's what we can do. So think about that as you're seeing these images. What should you focus on right now? Well, it's just like last week, taking care of yourself and your family. Try not to feed too much into the gloom and the doom and keeping a positive outlook on everything. But we are having people that are starting to prospect. They're giving more attention to their sphere of influence because they're home now, they're home in their home offices. They're giving more attention to their past clients, and they're following up with their active sellers on the showings, seeing if they're interested in, seeing if they're wanting to push it back a couple weeks. A lot of conversation around their timeline. So what's comfortable for them. Everybody has a different outlook on this. Some people have people that are, you know, in the hospital or battling some conditions that are pretty serious things. And so be cognitive of that fact and make sure that you're adhering to the stay notice that we just found out about on Monday. But number 3, we're already starting to see some of this where if you're not connecting with your lender more frequently, we're losing deals, you guys. We're losing deals because one lender couldn't even fund because of the funding was on the day, and they basically shut down the bank. It was a smaller bank. It was not a local bank, but they shut their doors. And so we had the deal ready to go, appraisal done, inspections done. We thought we were ready to close and the funding didn't happen. Signings were even done. So make sure you're connecting with your lender more frequently than you have in the past. Maybe Chris can speak to this. You know, Chris Somerville, are you there? Connect with the lender. You used to be a lender. Talk to me about this RON thing, this recording on notice. Is that what it's called?
Remote online notary.
There we go. Remote on notice. I'm making my own things up now.
You are, well, in the world of acronyms, it's like you pretty much can say whatever you want. If nobody knows any better, you're good. So yeah, remote online notary is something that right now I think most title and escrow companies are using to try to facilitate seller signings. You can do everything remotely online. It's facilitated through a third party. It's all legal and binding, and for sellers, it's a no-brainer. The question and the issues that kind of come up along with Ron right now, the current challenges throughout, Washington State, because this is a state-by-state thing, is just the lenders being on board with receiving and doing everything mobilely and digitally rather than having certain wet signatures. And so that legislature is being worked on. There are some lenders that have approved that. So it's really going to be just depending on what institution you're working with and what their guidelines are. So it'd be something that would be important to ask, especially if we get to a point. Right now, we are considered essential, which is totally, I agree with that designation, but at the same time, the fact that you guys have been deemed non-essential kind of defeats the purpose to a large degree. So I think as that potentially gets changed and shifted, with the inspectors, things like that, where they take a little harder look, this is going to be a bigger issue and a thing that I think that we're going to be advocating for more, that we can do everything remotely as far as signing is concerned. So I would say look for something to kind of change on the front as it relates to buyers. But right now, notaries and couriers are still considered an essential part of an essential business, which is us. So there's still a lot of mobile notaries and things that can be utilized for your buyer signings.
So the question they should still ask their lender, right, Chris, is will they allow recording a RON, right? Which would be, remind me again, remote?
Online notary.
Okay.
RON.
They fix my little, it's quick, right? That's the whole purpose, right? So I guess
it's quick. It facilitates it. I mean, the reality of it is what it's going to allow them to be able to do is, obviously do everything directly online. The only people, a lot of time, the only thing that would be like some challenges are people that are a little bit more technology challenged or unwilling to be able to facilitate certain things. But I would say 9 out of 10 would something they could do. It would expedite it. And I think it's probably going to be the wave of the future. There's going to be probably a lot more remote online notaries being done even after we get through the kind of the thick of this thing. So
cool. And then take on number 4, Chris, if you don't mind. So ask your preferred title and escrow rep. What about the e-recording, mobile notaries? These are things you want to kind of connect, get ahead of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can only speak for WFG, and I know that there are different variations of what's going on from company to company. So you want to check with your title rep and find out what their companies have to offer. Gap insurance is, most people typically think about that because they're familiar with auto insurance and what that look like, the difference if you're covering the difference between what you owe and what the value of your vehicle is. But in our industry and how that affects you is what that allows us to be able to do. And yes, we have it, and gap insurance allows us that even if we get to a point where we're not able to get recording numbers and we don't get the final information from the recording department down at the auditor's office, we can still consider that to be closed and insured. So that's where where you guys have got that new form that you got coming out to base. What form is that, Rochelle?
It's in a minute, so it's coming up. It's like
Okay. Yeah. So basically what we're going to be able to do is call that insured. And for us personally, we've got it. It's not just a temporary coverage. It's something that we can insure indefinitely until we'd have access to the auditor's office and be able to get those final recording numbers. So you're going to want to ask your title rep or your closer, do they have gap insurance, and what that's going to mean for you and for your clients if you do find yourself in that type of situation. E-recording, we're doing 99.5% of all of our residential resale, and even including most of our commercial stuff through e-recording. So even if the offices aren't open, we don't need face-to-face connections for that. Mobile notaries, those are still in place. It's really going to be contingent on the willingness of the actual notaries themselves. We still have a large fleet and kind of large roster of notaries that are willing to go do mobile notaries. No additional charge for that. That's just going to be in-home visits, or if we have designated locations by appointment only to do notary services, to do in-person signings. Mm-hmm. And then of course, earnest money wires, those are also things, and that's really going to be from institution to institution, and what banks will help you facilitate a wire. So if you're working with the bank, if you've got something going on, reach out to your bank and say, hey, I might be needing to do some wiring through this process. So you might want to educate your clients a little bit about that too as well, because wires sometimes need for an in-person visit to the bank. And I think institutions are going to start maybe making some adjustments and changes to that, but that's something you want to check with your banking institution on and how they would handle that.
Okay, awesome. So another question came through, and I know a lot of you have been asking me, I've been getting text messages all morning, is are inspectors and appraisers considered, can they go out during this 2-week stay? So my understanding, after talking with our attorney, is that inspectors are not, and appraisers are. Certain appraisers. It's because the appraisers are hired by the lender. Inspectors are hired by the buyer, and that we have to attend the inspections. And that's the part that's really confusing right now for people, because how are we supposed to do transactions when we can't get an inspector out to the house and actually meet them and conduct the business? And should appraisers, being that some of them are quite in the upper age in the vulnerable area, some of those appraisers probably shouldn't be going out to people's homes. So it's kind of this gray area that really has not been established. And currently, as far as I know, Washington Association of Realtors is still trying to iron out those two industries. Is that what you're hearing too, Chris, from your?
I am. And you know, what's interesting, because we are a national company, and because we do have a couple of regions that have already kind of beat us to the shelter in place and trying to designate, you know, essential versus non-essential businesses, California, New York, they are still doing inspections and doing appraisals. I would say that they're not as it was before. I think that they're taking obviously a lot of precautions, but they're still, so there might be some delays based on what the normal turn times were, but they're still out there doing that. So based on that information, I would imagine they're probably going to have to reevaluate that, follow suit, see how that's going in those markets, and then probably follow, you know, in the footsteps of what California and some of these other markets that have already experienced, you know, this shelter in place, and probably allow for, you know, in-person inspections and things like that. Because we're not seeing that in any other market except for Washington right now.
Yeah. So that's what we're hearing is inspectors are basically in the same boat as we are.
Mm-hmm.
That's according to the Northwest and West. So
that's true.
All right, so then we've got some good things on the horizon. I pulled this together from the New York Times. There's concerns about the recession are real, but housing isn't the driver. If you can look at the last 5 recessions, we have 1980. I mean, there's only been, you know, 2008 and then 1991 where there was a home price change. So, I mean, I still believe that we're going to see some adjustment here. There's still so much pent up demand. People are still needing to move, marriage, kids, job. I mean, Chris is even having a baby. I mean, who knows? He might want to expand his house once he sees what a baby's like. He might be looking for another house too. Retirement, and honestly, people are dying too. There's just the reality of how the cycle of life happens. So everybody needs a place to live. And this type of virus, I don't anticipate it. The good news is that, you know, it's not a 2008. It is probably going to be somewhere else in one of those other recessions, but we shouldn't see a drastic change in price. This is CoreLogic that's put this together. Next slide. Goldman Sachs, for whatever you guys want to think about Goldman Sachs, the GDP forecast though, this is from March 17th, so a few days ago. This is with further strong gains in early 2021. This is what their predictions are, that we're going to have Q2 is going to be a rough, about 5%, but then we should rebound in Q3 and Q4. So that's some good forecasting that gives me hope when we're kind of going through it right now. Extension. So some of you have had to include the 22 FM in your offers. I would encourage you to continue to do so now that we have an official stay order. 2 of you have asked me, they got mutual, so that's good news that we are still seeing some sales come through, but they are including a 22 FM, which provides for a 10-day extension to contingencies. So you will want to continue to use 22 FM. Prep your clients for it ahead of time. You want to hope for the best and plan for the worst, and that's the best way to do it, is to include 22 FM during the next couple weeks in your offers if you're going to be writing things up so that they can have an opportunity to do contingencies. 22Y, some of you have asked me, well, should I go back and do the other one, the new one, or should I do the 22Y? Some of you guys just need to modify the extension. Just simply do the 22Y. So a lot of you have asked me, which one should I do? Some people feel more comfortable doing the other one, but quite simply, the 22Y is an extension of the closing date. If you have to do an extension of other dates, term 2 and 22Y, you could type that in if you want some help with how to write it. I can help you with that. but you can use either one. Don't feel like you can't use 22Y. Some people, they don't want to have this new form introduced. They're kind of apprehensive about it, makes them feel unsettled. Find out from the other agent what they would prefer before you negotiate an extension. A 22Y might satisfy the trick and get your clients where they need to be. Speaking of closing dates, I've had people call me about movings and how is it going to work at my moving date or my possession date. You may need to consider doing a 65A or a 65B. So you need to know the difference between the two. One is where you would actually negotiate a possession date. So on, say, the 22Y, we also have to change the possession date. Say we did an extension, say our closing date was April 15th, and we're kind of feeling unsure about that because of everything going on with the stay. Maybe we want to do a re-inspect or we want to do a walkthrough before closing. So what we may want to do is do an extension on the 22Y, and also on the other dates, say the possession date is changed to, and then put the possession date. Otherwise, the possession date will be whatever you have upon closing. If possession date doesn't have to be on closing, you can negotiate a 65A or 65B very simply here. One is for the buyer occupying prior to closing. One is for the seller occupying after closing. So depending on the situation, who do you represent? You may need to dig up your 65A or 65B and do a short-term rental agreement. And you need to have this on file. So I need to see a copy of it if you're going to negotiate this. And I need to help you with it if you're not sure how to fill it out. So the rent shall be, you can still have $0 per day, or you can negotiate that. It could be something that is factored into the equation here. And then rents shall be payable to, they really need to be paid to the seller or the buyer, whoever is the other, who becomes the landlord in this particular situation. And you put in the period of from what day to what day. It could be a day, it could be 3 days, it could be 10 days, it could be 20 days. It could be, I would say up to 30 days would be where I want to see you do this. If it's beyond 30 days, let's have a conversation about the possession, because I don't want to have changes and things happening where we have to do decontamination. I mean, who knows what happens after 30 days. So I'm okay with the 65A and the 65B if it's less than 30 days and we're just trying to deal with just, moving some timelines around to get people in their house. Cancellations, we are seeing cancellations, and a lot of people have asked me, I'm so upset, I can't believe the buyer backed out. They just got mutual like 2 days ago and they sent me over a 35R and they checked the box, but they didn't even have the inspector go through. Is that possible? The answer is yes. The seller has agreed to sell with mutual with that particular buyer, and that buyer didn't even conduct an inspection, but in essence, they conducted a subjective inspection. That's the way that our inspection contingencies are written in the state of Washington. So if you're representing the seller and you're considering accepting an offer, you need to be very, very transparent with your seller and say to them, don't make any moving plans. Don't consider that this deal is going to be out of the clear yet until they pass that inspection period. Because they can just send you over a 35R and disapprove of the inspection, they're out. They do not have to provide a reason. It's subjective, meaning they don't have to provide the report or anything of the sort to give you that notice. The 35R is the notice. Many people think that they send the 35R and the 51. That's not appropriate. You're supposed to send the 35R and the Form 50, which is the instrument that instructs escrow on how to deal with the earnest money. Now, the earnest money, in the example that I gave, where maybe we got mutual yesterday and today that they're canceling the deal based on inspection off of a subjective inspection, in that instance, the earnest money actually doesn't even hit escrow. So you would do a Form 50 and just let escrow know that there was no earnest money, or just remind the parties that there was no earnest money deposited because mutual acceptance was on a certain date. Otherwise, you would put in the amount of the earnest money. Say it was $3,000 to the buyer, you put that in that line and have the parties sign off on Form 50. Technically, you don't need Form 50, but the escrow companies require it. So you need some sort of authorization by both parties to, in essence, cancel the deal in their system. But more importantly, make sure the 35R is done. I know I'm running short on time, but I have one more slide, the rescission. Form 51, how can you prevent a rescission? A rescission is when somebody wants to cancel. It can be used for no basis. So a lot of people, you confuse people when you send them a 35R and a 51 because there is a basis. There is a notice that was sent. When there is no basis, a 51 is a cancellation form that can be used that releases the parties from their obligations, from everything. And this is where rescission can be negotiated. So in order to avoid having a rescission, you really need to consider offering more earnest money to prevent rescissions from your buyer. The buyer could write, I've had one that they just changed their mind. They lost a lot of money in the stock market. And so they wanted to cancel the deal, and the buyer was like, can I rescind? And the answer is yes, but you're going to lose your earnest money, approximately $30,000, and they didn't care. They were so spooked by the stock market that they were fine signing a rescission. The seller gladly took their $30,000, and then they went back to active on the market. But that's what a rescission is when somebody wants to terminate and the parties agree to terminate based on there's no basis. However, I mean, we see them come through, yeah, we'll accept it, and escrow still will accept it 50 or 51 almost interchangeably, but there is a purpose for 51, and it cancels or it rescinds and releases every party from liability in connection with the sale. So it really should be used for that purpose alone. And I just on the same train of thought, no sellers, there's limited seller contingencies in Washington. The only seller contingency there is based on finance. If the buyer does not perform on finance, or if the buyer does not deposit their earnest money. That is the only seller contingencies we have in Washington. If the seller cannot find a home to close on, or if the seller doesn't have a place to live, you're putting your seller in jeopardy if you don't explain that to them at the onset of putting their home on the market. If you don't explain to them that there is not a way to say, I changed my mind, I don't want to sell my home anymore when you're under contract. Now, certainly if they want to cancel their listing, we will do that case by case. You can come to me and we'll have that conversation. But once you're under contract, the seller cannot just say, I changed my mind. And that's been very frustrating for a few sellers that we've had in the last 30 days. You also make sure that you send the notices before you send the 50 or the 51. Make sure that that is done appropriately. You run your risk of jeopardizing your buyer or your seller's position by rescinding or sending this ahead of a notice. So be very careful. I'm happy to assist or help with any type of 51 that goes back and forth between you and the other party. Next slide. I think that was the end. It was.
Yeah, we've got a couple questions though, Rochelle. It looks like some that maybe Chris can help with too. Says, are appraisers considered as being essential services, especially for deals in escrow when the appraisal is not done yet?
To answer that question, I would think that's just a case-by-case basis, but the reality of it is I don't think that appraisals are going to be as much of an issue. I think they're going to still be able to go out and do that. And I think they're just using alternate means like doing drive-bys. And I think what's happening is the lenders are easing their requirements and their expectations, but it's too early to know if they're going to change designations based on whatever milestone the transactions. And I think all things apply based on what came out from the governor's office. So if it's been deemed as non-essential right now at this point, unless they figure out a way to work around that, the only way to try to accommodate those things are by easing the requirements or the restrictions that they have through the financial institution. That would be my answer to that. So it's kind of unknown.
I agree with you.
And then we've got another question about the 22 FM. On the 22 FM, should we not make the number of days in item number 3 longer than 10 days? When it talks about automatic extension of closing. So I put it up here on the screen for you guys. You can take a look at that.
If through no fault of the buyer or seller for any reason, the sale of property cannot be timed and closed on the closing date shall automatically be extended for 10 days. 10 days seems to be what I'm seeing come through right now. But you have to kind of think about your parties. Are you working with an elderly couple and they're selling their home and they're in a compromised situation? Are you working with a younger broker, that's not concerned about the corona. I mean, you have to know your parties. And so in order to properly negotiate on 22 FM, you got to understand the situation that you're dealing with. I would say before you fill it in, contact the listing agent that's representing the seller and get kind of, the backstory. I'm going to go ahead and throw in a 22 FM in my offer. Are you guys okay with the 10-day automatic extension? And then let them respond and say, oh gosh, no, Rochelle, give me a couple weeks, give me 14 days. I'm really nervous about it, or my sellers are very nervous about it. Get their take on it before you just plop a number in there. I think that would be the appropriate thing to do in negotiation. So hopefully that answers your question. I would say 10 days would be a standard. Obviously that's the default, but understand the situation before you pop a number in there. Okay, what else?
Okay, and then we got another question, and if anybody has questions, feel free to send it through the chat. But another one is, what about if on the form 35, what if we were to extend our time period of inspection to more like 20 days instead of a 10-day inspection?
Sometimes, I'm hearing agents not liking the 22 FM. That's fine. Your broker's gonna either like it or not like it. I mean, depending on the situation, I would use it or not use it. But the way to get around that would be to keep the 35 in place and just do a longer inspection contingency. I think 21 days would be, in essence, almost the same as the 22 FM if you look at the contingencies and conditions here. So yeah, just on 1A, you would fill in 21 days.
Any other questions from you guys? Feel free to pipe in.
Hi, Lynette.
Lynette's got a question.
Hi. Hey, what about our SQUIM office, Rochelle? This is statewide, Governor Inslee's rule,
Yes.
right? So am I allowed to go into the office and do some house cleaning? And I mean,
it's kind of set up like a house. So I'm here in Sumner. I mean, unless they're going to go out there and police your Diamond Point, you be careful, is all I can say. You really should not be working in your office. You probably should be in your home office to honor
what if I post a sign that it's closed?
that's fine. That's what we've done in all the other offices.
Yeah. And I also had a comment about Form 65B, the rental agreement, seller occupancy.
Sure.
I just ran into this with my last deal, and it was a situation where the buyers needed to get in because they were being kicked out of the rental property, and the seller wasn't ready to move out yet.
Oh.
But escrow was closing. So, I said, fill out this form, and the buyers were reluctant just because they were tired of filling out forms, to be quite honest. And so anyway, I said, well, why don't you talk to your insurance company first?
Mm-hmm.
Thank God I said that, because the insurance company said that they would have to, if they would have allowed this form that with the seller still occupying the property, that they would have had to rewrite the whole insurance policy, and it would have affected the loan and everything. So they said, just make the seller a guest. So I just, and I can send you some more of that conversation, because I thought that was pretty interesting, and it could have gotten me in trouble with my clients had they not called their insurance agent. So
did you work out a negotiation with the guest kind of policy? It was kind of like an Airbnb setup then, is what it was.
Well, yeah, they just had him stay there for a few days, and and he was coming and going back and forth. So there was really nothing that they put in writing with him. He was just their guest.
I see. Well, and you're talking about term 4 right there. The landlord, is going to verify that they have insurance. And so that particular insurance provider didn't allow it. And so that's a good point to keep in mind, that you got to make sure you read the forms and know what you're having your client sign.
Yeah.
That could have put a complete kibosh on that deal. I know you represented both parties too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that becomes really challenging to say the least. But thanks for that tip. And if you don't mind sending me the language that you use, that would be awesome.
Okay. Sure.
One last question, I guess. It looks like Tim had a question about who made the determination as to whether or not agents were essential or not. And I put up what came straight from the MLS today. Do you want to kind of dig into that, Rochelle?
Sure. This is a political answer, and that's just the fact of the matter. We as Best Choice Realty brokers don't participate in Washington Association of Realtors or the National Association of Realtors. So we did not have a say in what happened down in Washington, but Washington Association of Realtors did send out an email that I got from my Windermere designated broker friend. And he shared with me that email, and it was like, they were not successful in lobbying for the realtor industry. The governor did not see the points that were made. It was more important to stay home and stay healthy than to consider real estate brokers as essential workers. So that was a decision that was made from the top. Even though there was some debate, it sounded like. Okay.
Hey, Rochelle, Sarah Screen here. How are you?
Hi, Sarah. Good.
All right. I sent you a text. I just didn't know if you had any input on the MLS bulletin from earlier that talked about how they might suspend days on market.
Yes.
And what
we're lobbying, trying to get, I mean, we're doing everything we can. We understand that this impacts real estate brokers. So I'm part of a group that's also trying to get at least a stay on the MLS dues. I mean, we can't show homes. We can't use our key boxes. I mean, there should be some relief there for us. So I did see your message come through. So yeah, I'm all for promoting that days on market being suspended or just on hold during this stay. We'll probably get more information as it comes, but right now they have not made a decision on any of that yet.
So what are your thoughts on going to temporarily off market? Would you recommend to wait until we see what the MLS decides on that first?
Yes, I would wait through the
Okay.
weekend and see what happens. This is all day by day,
Awesome.
guys. I mean, this stuff is
Right.
happening. I never would have thought my wildest dreams that I have to lay off my office staff like I had to today. I mean, it's just, it just
Awful. Too
numbs
bad.
me really to the core because, you know, it's awesome. We need to just all rally together and work together to get sales back up and running. So let's wait and see, Sarah. Let's hang tight through the weekend if we can.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Was there
Hey,
something else?
Yeah, Rochelle, I just forwarded to you. There's a Washington Realtors. There's a video from Annie Fint-Simmons.
Oh, perfect.
They just actually posted that within the last hour or so, and it's her kind of going through the stay-at-home, the deal that Governor Inslee did, and she kind of goes through that and kind of breaks it down in her interpretation from a real estate perspective. So you should have that link. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, do you want to share it to our Facebook page, Chris?
I can definitely do that. Or I can share, Michelle. All right, Rochelle, I've shared it to you, and you can share it to your page.
Okay.
And then you might get more pickups on that one. That way, if you guys share that, you might get more views.
Okay, we'll do
But
that.
I would say that's probably a good interpretation of what's going on and how we see things on the real estate side for the time being, at least.
Perfect. See, I guess what I said, it's like real time. It's like hour by hour now. Dang. Okay, and then I may get into contract tonight. Whew. What escrow companies and offices are still open? Yes, escrow companies and offices are still open. Correct, Chris?
They are, and I would say I can only, again, speak for my company, but also be watching some updates on social media, and I've got other friends and colleagues at other companies. I think for the most part, most escrow companies are working on a smaller staff. You've got a few people in-house, essential employees within the essential business. I would say probably 80% of staff are working from home. For most companies, and basically everything is going to be by appointment only if they're going to be in-house signatures. But as far as closing, recording, all of that, I think everybody for the most part across the board, at least for all the major companies that you guys are probably dealing with, are going to be open for business in some form or fashion. It's probably just going to be limited access to the offices.
Yeah.
But closing as title and escrow is up and going. Yeah.
Yeah, we went as far as Thurston County escrow. We've contacted all the way up to, I mean, some of these smaller companies, and we're seeing that, yes, we're getting
Law offices. I called law offices today too.
Yep, and then First American, yeah, everybody's getting much more mobile friendly. We're learning all that together.
Yeah. And I think that at the end of the day, that's where we're going to come out as a better industry, moving forward. I think it's going to be better for the environment. There's going to be a lot of things that I think that we've kind of been holding off on as an industry that I think are going to get massaged into place, and will probably be useful, convenient, and a benefit to everybody in the long run. So we're kind of excited about that piece of it, actually. But so everybody's prepared and ready to go. I think all companies are set up and ready and still running. So we'll
become stronger, I think, through all this, Chris. So we'll kind of conclude that. I think you're we'll rearrange the puzzle a bit and kind of put it back together, and we'll become stronger together. So thank you guys for spending the time. I know we went a bit over today, but I think it was well worth it to get the information out. Like I said, we'll keep connected and let you know as we hear things on Facebook group. And then I will also email you guys so that you're up to date at least once a week on what's going on here. So have a great night. We'll talk to you guys soon.